Sunday, Sunday Songwriting, AATFP. Welcome to Sunday Songwriting number 145.
Starting route to CDC. Head north.
I am all about just being truthful with what's going on, and this is my truth, and I like saying my truth with songs and rhymes. So, welcome. Thank you, everyone who helped me with the words for this vaccination song. You're amazing. And I just want to give a shout out to so many of you. I just want to personally thank you, Amanda Zarofsky, for sharing your story. I am so sorry that what you went through with your experience, and congratulations for taking action. And shout out Terry James for giving us your opinion. You know, it's all a conversation. Who else is commenting a lot? We got a comment from Katie Smith, Michael Cates, Brianna Taylor. Thank you again for sharing your story. I love you. Bruce Kaufman, Stephanie Grande, Mary Beth Tucker, Gary Clemens, Andrew Black. 400 comments or more. Y'all are amazing.
And turn left onto North Druid Hills Road Northeast.
Welcome to my 145th Sunday Songwriting presentation. It's kind of cool that it's the same week as the inauguration of our 45th president of this nation. It's good to pay attention to universal coordinations. There are no coincidences in a world of spiritualization. I'm so grateful that you're joining me on my journey as I look beyond vaccinations.
What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Tell me what's inside. I am truly humbled by the Advanced Medical Association, and saving lives every day is a more than respectable occupation. And I'm filled with so much appreciation for all the doctors, nurses, and staff in hospitalization working so hard and efficiently in emergency situations. I also see so much valuation in practices of Asian and alternative medications, Indian, African, indigenous medicine and spiritual meditations, breath therapy, massage therapy, nutritional and homeopathic consultations, all in essence working together to encourage self-care motivations, because individuals lacking health autonomy might be encouraging exaltation of a health and wellness dependency dependent on genome predestination, thus discouraging general healthy habits amidst socialization, while rising rates in health insurance are potentially adding cloudification to an otherwise self-care prioritization operation. What's inside the needle? Tell me what's inside. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside.
Okay, here's my attempted translation of the modern scientific explanation of vaccination with a lot of simplification. A vaccination is a derivation, a simulation of our natural immunization. Let's look at our antibody-antigen natural computation. Antigens alert us that we've had pathogens claim our body for visitation. Such, for example, viruses and bacteria come with their own antigens, their unique protein fragmentations. These invaders are tagged through their antigens by a team of antibody customizations, newly created in response to begin their tagging, stalling, and accumulation through neutralization, precipitation, complement fixation, and agglutination. And like a winning football team tackling its opponent, what follows is recuperation. Now, having control of the ball, you score as the other team is led off the field in their lamentation. Now, artificial immunity with vaccines uses antigen inoculations that produces antibody stimulation.
These antibodies are all ready to go if the more aggressive pathogens with their taggable antigens join the show. And in theory, this boosts your winning potentiation.
AKA an increased healthy life expectation. Because having a head start with already created antibodies is like starting a race 15 minutes before your opponent leaves their station. And still, often the tricky pathogen accelerations take on new formations with antigen mutations that we need to address with revaccinations. or re-exposure with booster applications. It's a temporary fraction of protection, unlike if you develop your natural immunization after disease contraction and recovery, which often proves a lifelong substantiation. Because just like playing football is not just about the individual players, but how they work in combination, actually, going through the motions of tackling and conquering the pathogen is an accumulation of experience and wisdom locked into the blood with deep cellular adaptations. But is asking an infant to create a team of defenders for not just one, not just two, but maybe 72 situations, like asking a construction worker to build a whole house in a couple of months' duration when the special labradorite renovations will take a couple of years for procreation? Again. Anyway, part of the theory's disease eradication effectuation is a study showing that because of host-pathogen interaction, 80 to 95% of the population needs to have participation in artificial immunization. It's called herd immunity vaccination, and this is the one argument that makes it difficult for those who claim their own body assignation to have any admiration. And so there's even encouragement to deny the right to control one's own body, which feels bad and is unfair ramification. And the iron fist is that it implies violations to each side of the individual idealizations. But my honest question is, do the risks outweigh the accelerations? Because it's not just recently, more than 20 years. It's been hundreds of years hearing stories about toxifications and recently autoimmunizations caused by infant vaccinations, and some argue this artificial immunization is too detrimental anyway on an immune system that hasn't reached its maturation, like doing facelifts on a baby or breast implantations or other intrusive cosmetic alterations, right? That most people would see as ridiculous in this phase of origination. Until about 2 to 3 months old, the baby relies on his mother's antibodies, at which time they show declination. Then, through its fungi and bacterial explorations, starts building its own significant fortification. And with significance, a 1-year-old child has a well-established systemation. But at 12 to 14 years old is when they finally reach adult levels of antibody formation. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. Just recently, we've been introduced to a new infant and adult compliant flu vaccination. It all seemed to come at once with unusual availability in drugstores, supermarkets, schools, and with grandiose marketing strategizations. I'm pretty sure we don't have to worry about the flu killing our species, and yet here we go being bombarded with media-driven vaccine glorifications. More about this later. But it surprised me, and it felt so strange that my last job required rigorous exemption applications for me to decline yearly flu vaccinations. My logic was that me not eating processed foods or refined sugars while boosting my mineralizations with foods rich in vitamins B, C, and D along with Qigong is a supernatural immunization. Plus, I was doing a liver flush over several months to support my own health complications and didn't want the vaccine's adjuvants to get in the way of this detoxification. But that wasn't a good enough explanation. Because now the idea of herd immunity programming would suffer from my lack of participation. So in order to protect my fundamental rights of what goes in my body, I needed religious exemption documentation. And oh, you antagonizations, congratulations, right here had me feeling like I was on probation. It's so strange to me that making a choice that feels so intuitively right to me could lead to my alienation. Innately, we crave healthy socialization, integration. So this was a huge immune suppression causing stress-induced fasciculations by people hypocritically promoting our health accelerations. Still for me, filling my body with foreign substances and formaldehyde would have been worse than the emotional degradation. And today, instead of artificial antibody stimulation, I'm having an emotional natural immunity response pumping antibodies of articulations towards antigens of proselytizations because my soul is telling me that abnegation to authority's mandation, especially when threatening my fundamental liberations, leave me vulnerable to self-annihilation. A spiritual imbalance that for me can cause emotional issues and disease physicalizations. Whoa, I just had a realization. I'll tell you later. I too would like relaxation. So stop wasting your energy attacking my frustration. I was pre-med, I saw the chemical equations, then had my own realizations because life is a journey, not a destination. And I had questions that weren't answered by my professor of biological moleculation. What I feel spans quite some duration, through half of my life in deep heartfelt mentation, seeking truthful education with tireless painful investigation, not relying on the radio or TV stations. And so I continue with my trepidations, like saying we're herd triggers upsetting implications, that we are to be thought of as cattle and sheep amidst our human civilizations, and it's spooky to not be able to justify our individual revelations because personally I am morally unable to see justification to harming or killing even one human who has a vaccine reaction with lifelong devastation. In the name of public health, reduction of people to numbers, herd immunization. I often look at our history throughout civilization and see that even without voluntary consent, there's often been inappropriate authorization, and through cassation they take reins, resulting in some of our human families' tragic extermination. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. Let me harp just a little longer on how I do not like that just questioning this, I've already faced humiliation, like couching me, the combination of a compliment wrapped around beration. It's actually a creepy normalization of a psychotic, narcissistic retaliation. This smells like a collectively trained reaction to someone who refuses spoliation, saying you are hurting everyone with the connotation that you alone don't matter, an intricate psychological warfare mind control tactic integral to depredation. Feeding the belief that one does not have the right to control their own body, which should be one's fundamental liberation. If you ask me, this sounds like a spiritual deceleration. Within this world filled with entertainment and media overstimulation, I have come up with a couple of theories on why there are so many attacks with personalization against the rights for an individual to choose. Later, I'll explore these puzzle piece serrations, how the grooves and notches of our own subconscious speak with inconceivable magnifications. Still, facing some degradation is a normal expectation when one goes against what's believed by the mass population. And it's a pretty common occurrence within the artist vocation. It's accepted that artists venture beyond society's limited realities with extraordinary imaginations to give us boundless actuations the public needs for regular sensory stimulations, plus huge shifts in societal beliefs are often influenced through artist visualizations. A renaissance is always just a thought away from materialization. Unfortunately, most artists face starvation, meaning the deprivation of appreciation and validation from their general congregation, because the interlunatation visionary message intoxications are often off the beaten path from the public's navigations. Anyway, I finally no longer fear this open communication about my different adaptations to what I felt as violations to my body's illuminations. I am not here to criticize anyone's individual vaccinal orientation. Vaccinating is your choice. You can decide what's good for you and your familiations, and I hope together we can find common ground for compassionate reciprocations. You are all my relations. I have so much appreciation for the connection and integration I feel in our co-creative peace and love manifestations. I hope you enjoy this lyrical presentation. Okay, fine, it's more like a dissertation. I intend for my summation to have medical and historical validation. As we explore this together, this is a mere reiteration, and the purpose of these words is to have conversation stimulation. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Tell us what's inside. Over 2,000 years ago, we learned a lot from Hippocrates' intelligent proliferation of medical knowledge, tracing back with collective agnation. Diseases were a product of environmental factors, diets, and living habits in his quantification. Remedies found in the healing power of nature he learned with years of gentle observation. Like using apple cider vinegar consumption and rest with immobilization, he especially saw results with the natural vaccine, which is the alliteration of the genus of heath family shrubs called a Vaccinium species of classification. Their fruit includes huckleberries, blueberries, cranberries, lingonberries, whortleberries, cowberries, and my favorite, sparkleberry Vaccinium arboreum, that can get mushed into such a simple and powerfully effective immune-boosting medication, because eating all of these raw berries causes powerful cellular antioxidation, a process of preventing molecular oxidation through the neutralization of a reactive oxygen that would otherwise be threatening with its creation of a free radical, a chemical with unpaired electrons that can wreak devastation due to the reactions it can cause with abductions of your molecules, damaging your essential molecular structuralization. It's like saying to that threat, you better back away with that life force charge deactivation thing that you do. I got my antioxidants through fresh fruit and vegetable cornucopiation. And you don't have a chance at your attempted desensitization. And there's no way I'm going to let you stay, because you know you want to react into free radical polymerization. And I'm just not down with that deterioration, like oxidized cholesterol. No way. I choose revitalization. By the way, most of these reactive oxygens enter our body through environmental implications. For example, chemicals, pollutants, smoke and chlorination, alcohol, food preservatives, pesticides, and even UV radiation. So let's fast forward 1,000 or so years and talk about the environmental implications. There's always been problematic areas with no sanitation, people drinking and cleaning with defecation, and the coal ash runoffs with no phytoremediation, the revolutionary industrialization with chemical monstrations, technical and nuclear radiation, and global deforestations. Chemical weaponry escalations and biological warfare, making superviral innovations, introduction of processed foods, eating oils with hydrogenations, chemicals added for food preservation, cooking with utensils and pans filled with toxication. Oh man, sounds like heaven for free destructive radical oxidation. What else? Poisonous cosmetic products and toxic construction project originations, drinking water filled with fluoridation, the clothing we wear filled with pesticidal molestations, increased fossil fuel transportations, pipelines all leaking on the way to fueling stations, causing water and soil contaminations. Is there any getting away from these environmental habituations? And yet not a lot of this is being accounted for in the medical documentations of disease. So how is it we are certain that disease is mostly a categorical externalization after years of unnatural internalization? See, if we entrust Hippocrates as our doctoral representation, we must look back at his words again. Disease is a product of environmental factors, diet, and living habits. This is his quantification. What's inside the needle? Tell me what's inside. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. Are vaccines safe? Now, what caused smallpox? Was this disease created as a weapon?
Militarization?
In any case, we may not know. But the acclaimed smallpox eradication started as a procedure called variolation that dates back centuries to the Greek observations that an exposure to disease built up a protective immunization, and later in China, variola scabs were turned into a powdered variolation for nostril inhalation. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it caused more outbreaks as it continued its staycation. But those who had exposure to cows with cowpox were noticed to show higher rates of smallpox immunization. And then cowpox inoculation in the 1800s became a preferred immunization. Now the Latin, lac vaccinum, means cow's milk. What a coincidental close association to the genus Vaccinium. Can cowberries heal cowpox? There's an interesting contemplation. So thus England's Dr. Jenner called his practice of vaccination. Then in the 1950s, we developed a freeze-dried version through the process of centrifugation, which would allow long-term storage without refrigeration. But now, the smallpox vaccine is no longer part of our scheduled immunization because it's considered less safe than any other viral defenestration, with adverse side effects like regional lymphadenopathy, fever, and lesion formation. America showed outbreaks of smallpox until 1925. After that, a milder form showed its reverberation, and by 1949, in America, there was already smallpox eradication with no vaccination. 33 countries still had reported cases of smallpox perpetuation, and millions of dollars went into the formulation of this World Health Global Plan for smallpox elimination. Meanwhile, the creation of bifurcated needle for penetration required a smaller dose for its delivery simplification. Luckily, transmission of this virus only became epidemic in highly dense populations. So even though 50% or less of some internations received the vaccination, by 1980, not one case of smallpox showed up in an investigation. But besides the popular belief, smallpox contraction has another medical explanation of toxation. The gut in those affected has a limitation in finding ways of elimination because of the excessive animal meat fermentation in it.
which then finds its way out of the body through these ugly skin ablations. There have been cases of people contacting these irritations without contracting any of these fatal affectations. So being certain it's contagious might be a stretch of the imagination. The body is amazing in its adaptation, for if it didn't erupt in these palpations, there would be no way to transudate the toxic fermentations that could cause devastation if not immediately finding their exudation. The accompanying fevers and headaches are signs of detoxification that generally subside as soon as the blisters begin the dangerous protein removal transudation. Do we need vaccines? What is this machine? Will it keep us clean? Or is it mean? Is it obscene? A big smoke screen. So why did so many die and scar from this seemingly natural healing transformation? Because the treatment at the time called for phenol and mercury-soaked gauze application. This antiseptic and poisonous material gave the papules no ventilation to release the toxication, along with a suffocation of the body's own bacterial army that would naturally have cleaned up the excoriation, resulting in a scab that would eventually find its disintegration. But with these bandages soaked with corrosive liquidations and no aeration, scars were inevitably formed. And that's all I got now for this explanation. But how can we say there was full global eradication of smallpox with a vaccination in 1980, when in 1996 there were outbreaks of monkeypox in the Congo aggregation? Did monkeypox come from smallpox, or was it monkeypox that started the smallpox epitomization? Eating raw monkey meat has definitely been documented as a sickness-causing situation. Do I need to go into how countless smallpox vaccines cause death and no immunization? How if one contracted smallpox even after vaccinated, to avoid deterioration of their intended diagnostic evaluation, it was called chickenpox. Data can be tainted to prove one's determination. Bending numbers and removing facts can prove their propagations. It couldn't hurt to keep on sifting through these massive data compilations. What's inside the needle? Tell me what's inside. It's cold here in front of the CDC. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. Are vaccines safe? You know, I need to talk about polio before we go into highly criticized autism correlations, because that is a huge fear, keeping attachments strong to the belief in vaccinations. But I'm going to keep it short to allow you to do your own investigation. Poliomyelitis is a viral disease that in 0.5% of cases there is temporary paralyzation, and 2 to 5% of these 0.5% children die. It's spread through eating infected defecation. A number of doses of the polio vaccine is said to prevent this disease with effectuation, and they discovered in the early 20th century, so does cutting out sugar, according to Dr. Benjamin Sandler's scientific testification. Could this be true? He documented that in less than 24 hours, without consuming any sugar or starch replications, the body can literally build resistance to the viral infestation. In a publication, he wrote a supplication for community cooperation to adapt a diet low in sugar for just what he saw as 2 weeks needed for polio eradication. He further was able to give polio to a polio-vaccinated animal, of which his manipulations involved creating hypoglycemic abnormalizations. Though the poliovirus was the main cause of poliomyelitis, there is an elation simply found in medical literature that the Coxsackie, Echo, and enteroviruses can also be the causation. What does this mean? That the Salk vaccine with polio antibody stimulation would not be effective in these situations. They also found the infection was more catastrophic if someone lacked an integral bowel flora population. Scientists also saw this bowel infection to be mimicked by lead, arsenic, DDT, and other neurotoxifications. Sounds a lot to me like free radical polymerization parties. Plus, The formaldehyde used in Salk vaccines to create a state of viral inactivation did not always work as planned. And in fact, the viruses would resurrect in the vials, causing actual viral inoculations, thus creating an unnecessary viral propagation. Do we need vaccines? What is this machine? Will it keep us clean, or is it mean? Is it obscene? A big smoke screen. Acute flaccid paralysis and transverse myelitis are today treated with artificial ventilation, just like the iron lung that was used with polio. See, it's a replication. With a different name, it still exists, with hundreds of yearly cases of documentation. What's in a name? That which we call a rose would smell as sweet, if not Romeo. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, so Romeo would, if not Romeo called. But let's end this polio conversation with a very positive proclamation. Dr. Frederick Klenner claimed to have given all of his polio patients 100% health restoration with intravenous vitamin C. Does that not bring you major elation? Yes. Approval exists for vaccine regulation alongside miscalculations and misinformation. Dissociation from this and our intuitive sensory input can cause derealization, leading us to placation to accept domination, blocking our own realizations. And the worst part about it is it makes it harder for us to be full of celebration. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Let's see what's inside. What's inside the needle? Tell me what's inside. Are vaccines safe? Thank you so much for listening. Part 1 is done. Part 2 will be coming very soon, hopefully by this Sunday. I know this is so late, but I really appreciate your patience. And gosh, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
We love you.
We love you.
Hey y'all, I had to rush out of the CDC because it was so cold. But I just wanted to say, please definitely tune in next week. There's so much material I haven't covered on this one, and I'm really excited to share the other stuff. So don't forget to look out for that. If you haven't seen on my Facebook wall, I put out a contest for a free CD if someone could guess how many words that rhyme with Asian are in my song this week. And I'll announce that winner next week, and I'll tell you how many words. Definitely tell me, comment on this video today and guess how many Asian words are in my next video. And that was suggested on my post was actually masturbation. And I think I deleted one of them because there were just so many people who said it, and I just kind of deleted it. So I'm sorry if you were the one that said it and I deleted it. And I promise I'm going to use it in the next one. I'm going to figure out how to use that word. So stay tuned for that. What's inside the needle? Do your own investigation.